Faster and more powerful than their predecessors, the 38 class were able to haul more carriages while reducing travel times on the celebrated express services. The 38 class was first conceived in 1938 and suffered many delays during construction due to material shortages caused by World War II. Built by Clyde Engineering, 3801 was the first of 30 38 class locomotives built to haul express trains and to replace the 36 class on these premium workings. 3801 to 3805 were built by Clyde to the famous streamlined design, while the remaining 25 were built by the government railways themselves at Everley and Cardiff locomotive workshops and were not streamlined. 3801 was the first engine completed in 1942 and entered service on the 22nd of January 1943. It became known at the time as the Grey Nurse due to its drab, all-grey colour, a wartime camouflage scheme. On the 25th of February 1943, 3801 worked the Newcastle Flyer for the first time, running from Sydney to Newcastle. When joined by 3802 in April 1943, these engines were allotted to working the Melbourne Limited expresses. In early 1947, 3801 was given a heavy overhaul, and at that time was painted in its standard colour scheme of green with yellow lining. In 1955, 3801 was overhauled once again, being painted black with red lining as a cost-cutting measure. It was around this time that diesel locomotives started appearing on the rails of New South Wales. The intention being to replace steam with diesel power and to confine even the most modern steam to all stations' passenger trains and to goods trains. In December 1956, 3801 was the first of its class to accrue 1 million miles, or 1.61 million kilometres, of service. In early 1963, 3801 was given another major overhaul, during which time it was repainted in its original green. It was often used on special services operated by railway heritage organisations, the most famous being a non-stop run from Sydney to Newcastle on the 28th of June 1964, when it just failed to break the 2-hour barrier. This remained the fastest journey from Sydney to Newcastle by rail at 2 hours, 1 minute and 51 seconds until bettered by an XPT in 1988. In October 1965, the locomotive was found to have serious boiler problems and was withdrawn from service. The New South Wales Rail Transport Museum contributed $18,000 to repair 3801, and the boiler from her sister loco 3819 was fitted. 3801 returned to service on October 1966. During this time, it operated a train celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Newcastle Flyer on the 31st of May 1969, as well as the Western Endeavour Special across the continent to Perth between the 22nd of August and the 12th of September 1970. In October 1972, 3801 worked to South Australia with 3642 as part of celebrations to open the Whyalla line. In April 1973, it ran to Melbourne with 3820. In 1974, the Public Transport Commission barred all steam trains from New South Wales main lines. However, during June and July of that year, 3801 was allowed back to be used as the star of an award-winning film, A Steam Train Passes. 3801 briefly ran in 1975 to help raise money for survivors of Cyclone Tracy. After this, 3801 was transferred to the New South Wales Rail Transport Museum at Thirlmere, where it was used for museum tours until December 1976, when boiler problems again led to its withdrawal. In November 1982, the Chief Executive of the State Rail Authority, David Hill, inquired about the suitability of restoring 3801 for the 1988 bicentenary of British settlement in Australia. The boilers of other preserved 38 class locomotives were inspected, and it was decided to use the boiler already in 3801. However, the inner firebox had suffered thermal fractures and would need extensive repairs. 3801 was taken to the State Dockyard in Newcastle on 20 November 1983 for restoration by the Hunter Valley Training Company, where the firebox was to be completely replaced. The new firebox had a different shape, and this reduced the boiler pressure from 245 down to 215 psi. On 8 November 1986, a fire was lit for the first time. By the 10th of November, 3801 was running around nearby sidings. More short trials followed, and on 15 of November, 3801 was back in work. After restoration, 3801 operated heritage trains throughout New South Wales. During the Australian Bicentennial celebrations in 1988, it operated an extensive program across Australia, visiting every mainland capital accessible by rail, including another trip to Perth. On the 6th of May 1990, 3801 was involved in the Cowan rail disaster. She was struggling to climb the Cowan Bank on the Sydney side of the Hawkesbury River when a City Rail interurban passenger service crashed into the back of 3801's train. In 1992, 3801 visited Alice Springs for the first time, using the standard gauge track laid in 1980. The locomotive was awarded an Historic Engineering Markup plaque by Engineers Australia on the 6th of November 1994. The locomotive continued to haul heritage day trips and longer excursions until withdrawn from service for a major overhaul at the end of 2007. In May 2013, the New South Wales Transport Minister Gladys Berejiklian acknowledged the importance of 3801 and said it would be a priority to return it to service. In September 2015, Transport Heritage New South Wales announced that 3801's old boiler was to be reconditioned by the Goulburn firm Ainsworth Engineering. In July 2019, the boiler upgrades were completed and the boiler was mounted to the frame. By September 2019, the locomotive had passed its first steam test, and as a result of firebox upgrades, the boiler pressure was returned to the original 245 psi. In January and February 2020, the locomotive undertook several trial runs from the Chullora yards and then from its home at Thirlmere in the Southern Highlands. 3801 was repainted in March 2020. It was finally returned to service on the 13th of March 2021. Today, 3801 continues to live at Transport Heritage New South Wales Thirlmere Depot and runs several short and long trips each year. It continues to draw a large crowd eager to catch a glimpse of this majestic locomotive wherever she runs. To the travelling public, the class embodied the romance of the steam era of express trains racing through the countryside from city to city. The first 5 locomotives, with their distinctive streamlined casings, were instantly recognisable. They were the last steam engines built in New South Wales for passenger operations. Today, 3801 is the only streamlined locomotive to survive in New South Wales. If you like this video, why not hit like, subscribe, and the bell so you know when we upload new content.